Episode 132, PR Essentials Summit, knock out your media interviews like a pro.
Welcome to the PR Playbook Podcast, the only podcast giving you actionable skills and advice you need to execute a strategic PR program. Warning: what you hear next may lead to brand awareness and increased sales and customer exposure. Now here's your host, Rinjini Joshua.
Hi, guys. I'm excited to introduce this quick segment from the PR Essentials Summit, knock out your media interviews like a pro. In this conversation, I talk with Kerri or Gerbis. You'll find out when the recording starts. And she is a media trainer and speaker. We also have Jasmine Stanley from the TST team. And we kind of just talk about media training and what you need to know and best practices for doing an interview the right way and making sure that you kill it, I guess, for the most part. It's a really fun conversation. So get out your pencils and take notes. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us. But I think you'll get a lot from this interview. It talks about just doing your background research before doing your media interview, using your voice, using sound bites, and how to message the interview so you can get what you want out of it. Good luck and enjoy the episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 PR Essentials Summit. Today, we will be discussing how to knock out your interview like a pro. And we have joining us today, Kerri from Ovation Communication. Say hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
And just to start, Kerri, I'd like if you could do a brief introduction. That would be great.
Sure. Thank you. I'm the founder and CEO of Ovation. We're a communication skills training firm. We specialize in professional presence and speaker development. So we get a lot of people ready to speak on big stages, small stages, in front of cameras, and we will work with anyone and everyone. I've got a team of 25. We train globally and in different languages. And that's
Awesome.
all about us.
And I'm Jasmine Stanley. I am a strategic communications professional with about 10 years of experience. I've worked with several different clients doing different types of media training, just getting them ready for their interviews, how to respond to different questions, the tough ones, crisis communications, new product launches, everything in between. And so today, this is our agenda for today. We're going to start off by talking about doing your background research. We're going to talk a little bit about how to leverage your voice during these media interviews, as well as using sound bites and CTAs, media interview messaging, and also tips to knock your interview out of the park. And then finally, at the end, we'll make some time to take some Q&A from our audience. So when I am starting to do my media training, the very first thing I always tell my clients, Kerri, and I'm sure you do this as well, is the importance of doing your background research. You have to, before you even get on camera, in front of the TV, on radio, make sure that you are, finding out who your audience is. So you can make sure that you guys are creating messages specifically for your audience. Making sure you do a lot of research on, who you're going to be speaking with, the type of interviews that they've done. You can even see what kind of questions they've asked before, different, guests that they've had, to kind of get a feel of, that type of things that you'll be asked. And as an agency, one of the things we usually do is we always make sure that we do a briefing sheet. So when you're working with your agencies, it's good to work with them and figure out, can we get some test questions, doing a little bit of practice before the interview, and just to make sure that you're properly prepared for whatever questions may arise during.
Yes. This is sort of exactly what we did the other day when you and I prepped for this.
Yeah.
Remember, I was like, okay, wait, who is the audience? And if you can go on, I love that tip of go on and watch or listen to an interview or anything that is out there. And of course, lots is out there now, to get a feel and a vibe, even to understand how the cadence of the person that you're speaking to. So the more information you can get, the more prepared you are as the person in the hot seat.
Exactly. Totally agree. And then that brings us to the next thing. When you are, which would be like leveraging your voice, Kerri. And I know you can speak to that. When you have those meetings with your PR firm, it's really important to work on this particular part of leveraging your voice in the interview. So you can make sure that you're getting your messaging across. So you can make sure you're getting it across in a way that you're kind of not using jargon. I know a lot of times, a lot of the interviews that we do and our clients, they have these super high level and technical backgrounds. And so sometimes when they're doing interviews, it's so easy because this is just common language, that you have when you're talking to, us or, anybody else that you work with in the company. These are the terms and this is the way you speak, but it could be a completely different situation when you're doing interviews, especially media interviews and public speaking as well.
Absolutely. And always assume that your audience doesn't know. And it's okay if you're introducing some new vernacular or understanding if I'm going to use a certain jargon phrase, take a second and define it. If you don't, you're really quickly going to lose your audience and your message is not going to get across. The first thing that you want to discover as you're preparing and as you're getting ready for these interviews or speaking is to identify what is your habits that you do, and what is a choice. And are your habits getting away of your messaging? So is that something physical? Is it visual? Is it vocal? Or is it verbal? What are your tics or your habits? So when we start to work with speakers, again, whether they're getting ready to present or getting to be interviewed, we'll talk about using, first and foremost, open body language. And that's even if you're doing a radio interview or on a podcast and you're never going to be seen, because your physical stance, how you're physically presenting and using your body, informs what your voice does. So, for example, right now I'm standing and I love to stand, and you don't have to stand, and not everybody can stand. The important part is to make sure that your breath is supported. So if you are seated, then making sure that your spine is as straight as possible and you're comfortable and you're free to breathe and fill up your diaphragm so that can support your volume. It's so important. And breathing for relaxation for when you might be a little nervous is really important. So having that bandwidth within your diaphragm, which is like, think about it as it's right kind of sort of behind and above your belly button, for lack of a better term, that you're able to be in a physical space that you can fill that up. So making sure that your body language is neutral and open, because even though something like this, right, if I'm crossing my arms, back up a little, crossing my arms like this, and I'm kind of hunched over, like it feels so good, right, Jasmine? It's like I'm stretching my it feels good. But first of all, I think it looks terrible. You're going to look like a wreck to your audience. And even if they can't see you and you're on a radio podcast, whatever it is, you're doing something like this, your voice starts to get lower and maybe you might get some vocal fry or like other things. So making sure that you're showing up and you're sounding like how you want to sound. A big thing to keep in mind in terms of leveraging your voice is to become aware of what your vocal fillers are.
Yeah.
Those are the right? The ums, the uhs.
Yes. And but yes, that, and to your point earlier about your voice and your body as well. I remember when I used to work in a restaurant and I used to take reservations over the phone. And one thing that they always told me, and I kind of this translates to media interview training, is like when you answer the phone and you're saying hello, like smile, right? Like
Yes.
even when you're not physically in front of somebody, like the smile really conveys how your voice comes out, on the phone. Like you sound happy, sound cheerful, you sound helpful. Like all of those things are super important when leveraging your voice. And in addition to that, too, I think another important thing is to remember to be yourself and authentic. I think the more authentic you are, the more comfortable you'll be, the more open you'll be. When you're nervous, that really helps with that too. Like, don't focus so much, I guess, on saying the perfect thing, but focus on saying the things that you want to say and the way that you would normally say that, right? So I think that's also very important when leveraging your voice.
Absolutely. And I that the authenticity piece is really important. And whether you're the interviewee, the person getting interviewed, or you're going to be the PR professional who's coaching the person, is that for you, or to let them know, to get into this mindset that mistakes are good, that mistakes make us human or keep us human. They don't, we already are human, most of us. And that having those human moments and not striving for perfection, especially in an extemporaneous interview, is only going to make you more nervous and appear robotic and really unrelatable. And mistakes make us super relatable. And also, to your point about authenticity, so what we always tell everybody we work with is, we're not trying to turn you into a presentation robot. We're trying to make you a shinier version of yourselves. That's it.
Exactly. Because I can even remember something simple as when I was in grad school and I was taking public speaking classes. Mind you, at this point, I had already been in my profession in PR for several years. I was used to speaking with people. I was used to doing group, projects and things like that where I had to talk to a variety of people. But when I got on the stand, I was just so nervous. And I just could not get myself together, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just want to be perfect. I want to make sure that this is making sense. You have all these different things that you have to pay attention to when you're doing public speaking or you're doing an interview. And like, those things sometimes can really just affect the way that your messaging is coming across. So I always like, oh man, just make sure that, even now, and in this webinar, you get a little nervous. But as we continue to talk and we're talking about things that are authentic to us, it just makes everything come together and, run smoothly.
Yes. So many people that the fear of public speaking is rampant. That the latest statistic that we've been quoting is that 73% of the population suffers from public speaking anxiety. That is a lot of people. And typically that fear, right? We get nervous, whether we're standing in front of a class in college or on a webinar or in an interview. It's a lack of preparation. And
Right.
you can't really prepare. If you're giving a presentation, you're going to rehearse. If you're giving a media interview, you can prepare. So whether that's, you could do some role playing with your coach, with the person you're working with, the PR firm. You can do it just for fun. And it doesn't even have to be necessarily the question that you might get. You could throw 10 questions, or have your child or your cousin or your friend just random 10 questions, so that you're practicing that on the fly messaging. That's a great fun thing. It's very low pressure. And that's when you can start to become observant of what habits emerge. So that if you and I are practicing, Justin, right? You're my client and you get really nervous in these interviews, and I'm like, all right, let's do some practice stuff. And I'm just throwing at you fun questions like, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? What is your favorite city to go on vacation, or something like that? If I'm starting to observe that every time you start to answer a question, you're starting with, like, you're doing a verbal habit and maybe a physical thing by looking up at something that is lowering your credibility, I'm going to make you aware of it and then replace it with something that is more credible and more connecting to your audience. And you can prepare, or even for extemporaneous conversations.
And that actually brings us to our next topic, which is using sound bites and CTAs. The best way to avoid those things are to have answers prepared, which would be sound bites, basically. So when we're working with our clients, we usually like to tell them before the interview, think about 3 major key messages that you want to share, because these journalists, of course, they want to hear the entire interview, but now we live in an age of social media, right? So when you go on social media, what is the first thing you see? It's usually a sound bite. Sound bite is the new term, I would say, for what a headline used to be, right? In a newspaper, the thing that grabs the reader, that thing that grabs the audience attention. And so when you're preparing for an interview, think about three things: concise, clear messages that you want to share with your audience, that you know the journalist is going to pull from your interview and can pull from your interview to kind of attract a wider audience to hear what you're saying. So and that again is all a part of the preparation aspect of it all. And that knowing those key messages and having those in your back pocket will help with the things like me, for example. I don't know why. I think I'm Obama. I love to talk with my hands. I try so hard not to do it all the time, but I just feel like when I'm saying something and I know it, and I'm prepared and I know exactly what I'm saying, the hands kind of emphasize, right, exactly what I'm saying. But yeah, the sound bites, the CTAs, the call to actions, all of those things are super important and a part of the preparation for speaking.
That is excellent. Can I say something about the hands? I want to talk about
Yes,
hands.
please.
People ask me a lot of it, like ask us a lot about hands. And then somebody always makes a joke about from Ricky Bobby from that movie when they're like, what do I do with my hands? Somebody
Uh-huh.
always makes this ridiculous joke. So here's the thing. We very much, from a communication standpoint, that hands are great. This is part of your communication. Don't hide them, even if you're on camera. There's a big difference between like, good morning, I'm going to talk about this, to good morning, I'm going to talk about this, right? It's expressive. Now, this does, when we get on camera and we're using our hands up here, it does at first feel a little weird, right? It is where I don't normally express myself with my hands this close.
Right.
It is, however, this can look a little weird. Like this can look like I'm making spaghetti, and because you can't see what my hands are doing down here. If you can, get them into the picture. And if you're talking in person, as much as you can, you want to use your hands above the waist so the attention is drawn up here and not down hip, as I like to say. So you want to keep the attention up, down. And I'm very much a fan of hands. The more the merrier. And that, as long as it's, as you said, emphasizing what you're saying and not sort of like you're not doing something really weird that doesn't have anything to do with what you're saying, that can get distracting.
Fidgeting.
Dance I'm trying to do right here.
Yeah.
It's not that, then you're in good shape in terms of the hands.
In terms of hands, exactly. And so we talked a little bit about media interview messaging. And Kerri, what are some of the things that you ask your clients when it comes, or you train your clients on when it comes to interview messaging? Maybe like a do or don't, I would say, for that.
Right. The you have to go in with a goal. You have to know what your goal is. Okay, what do I want my audience to know, or what do I want them to feel, or what do I want them to do? If you can pick one of those three things and sort of have that as the big banner in the back of the room, or like picture somebody holding about a big sign behind the interviewer's head, that is the goal that you're going for. That can help with nerves first and foremost, because you've got a goal, right? We're concentrating on our goal so much we forget, oh, right, I'm speaking in front of other people. I'm really nervous. So that can help. And it's really going to target everything that you say. It gives you a goal. All right, I'm answering this question to obtain this goal, rather than I'm just talking to answer this question, I'm scared. Or I'm filling time and I don't know what I'm saying. So absolutely identify a goal. And also with messaging is to know for yourself what you won't talk about.
Yes.
Get prepared to deflect, defer, or quick answer, move on, whatever you're going to do in terms of not answering a question, but know what those things are that you're not willing to go to.
So do you suggest, for the questions that individuals don't want to answer, or maybe sensitive topics, a lot of, in the past, no comment, no comment. What do you suggest to your clients when they get into those questions? Do you suggest that they prepare, answers beforehand? Or like for us, I usually tell them to, you know, use a bridge, right? Like maybe answer the question directly, right? And then bridge it into maybe another topic of discussion that you kind of want to go into. Like that's a technique to kind of avoid the no comments or off the record type thing. So I want to know
Yes.
what you share with your clients as well.
Yeah, that bridge technique is fantastic. If you can't answer it for, I don't know, legal compliance, anything like that, that's to me a no-brainer in terms of I'm not able to answer that question at this time, or legal reasons I can't answer. It's a little more credible than just no comment. And then, and if you don't want to say that, or maybe it is a no comment, you could say, what I'd rather talk about is blah, 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 blah. And ideally, your interviewer is going to very much yes and that part of the conversation and pick up what you've thrown back and go with that, possibly.
I usually
So,
think that, like, you guys are in control technically. Like the interview is asking the questions, but you as the interviewee are in control of the interview. You have as much, you know, power to kind of craft the narrative, right? You don't have to feel like you're falling into a pitfall of questions that you might not necessarily want to answer. There are several techniques that you can kind of lean into when you get, you know, nervous, right? Like maybe just taking a breath, or if you don't know what you're going to say exactly, you feel a little prepared for that question. Taking a breath in a moment. You don't need to jump right into answering a question that you might not want to answer, or you're nervous, or whatever the case may be happening at the time.
right. You don't have to answer anything. And if you ask me something really pointed that I was like, no, I'm not going for whatever reason, right? I didn't want to go there. You ask me this question, and in my brain, I'm like, no, 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 no. And all I have to simply say is, I don't want to miss the opportunity to talk about XYZ and move on.
Oh, I love that. And that's
They
great. Oh,
they
sorry.
want they that thank you. The interviewer wants you to keep talking. They're not gonna look good if you're not talking. So a good interviewer is gonna pick it up and roll with it with you. That was two different metaphors, but you get what I'm saying. Like them.
Yeah, exactly. And also I wanted to piggyback off of that too. When you that's a great technique to use, because a lot of times clients are so nervous, like their interviewer is not asking particular questions that they were prepared to answer. And so that technique that you just said, you know, I'd love to talk about this, or this, what I really want to get to, or, you know, what's really important. That kind of technique really helps when you need to, like, you might be running out of time in your media interview and you need to get some key messaging, or you missed something, or, you know, you had an additional insight, or you wanted to go back to something that they said and address that. That's like a perfect technique to kind of bring it around and then get that messaging across that you were, you know, aiming to do initially.
Yes, yes. Hey, did you see we have a question?
I
And the
didn't.
question oh, you didn't? So it says, what about your look? How important is what you wear in a media interview?
Here we go. We're right, that bridges us right into our next topic, which are tips to knock out your interview. So did you want to go ahead and take that? And I'll add in.
That sure. You want to be comfortable. You want to be you. You also want to be that shiniest version of you. So making sure that it's tantamount to your brand, whatever you're representing, whether that's you, your company, your mission. And of course, if we're on camera, there's a couple little techniques of, right? You don't want anything that's too busy, too many busy patterns that can do some weird stuff. And in terms of how important is what you wear? I think it is important if you're going to be on camera. The neurotypical brains take in information first visually. It's how you look. So absolutely making sure that you're looking how you want to come across. Are you very high level professional? Look good if you're more if whatever is part of your brand. And absolutely, I think it's important. What about you?
I feel like it plays to your credibility. So if you are a CEO of a, you know, then I've seen this several times. Living in California, we have a lot of like tech startups, and you know, we'll walk across the street and you don't know that that's a person that's a, you know, because they're not wearing a suit, they're kind of t-shirt and jeans. But one of the things I would say that's appropriate for that industry. I see a lot of that, no matter where you're positioned at. They're very laid back. They're very into, you know, the technology. But I think if you are a CEO like Wall Street or something like that, it just really depends on two, you know, the outlet that you're interviewing for. If it's more of a casual, laid back type of conversation, or if it's something that's going to be on TV, again, it's really just how you present yourself. And you don't want to go with a dirty, t-shirt on and jeans. That's just nothing like that. But definitely, I think that it's important to how you dress shows your personality. I'm super big on that, whether I'm doing media interviews or I'm just going out and having drinks with my friends. So, put your personality into it. If you like bright colors, make sure they're not too bright because to your point, certain things don't translate on screen. But I think if you want to come across as credible. So keep that in mind always. Are they going to take me seriously in what I'm saying if I'm sharing, facts from a report, but I look like I don't know anything about the industry because I'm not properly dressed? Those are things to always keep in mind when it
I
comes.
think it goes, and everything about the interview goes to credibility. You're being interviewed because you're credible in this space. So make sure you're looking and sounding like, let's show up like we are.
Especially because now with virtual interviews, right? Everybody is, on Zoom or on Google Meets and things like that. I feel like it can get a little bit lax, but there are times where, you know, I I'm on a Google meeting, I might throw a, turtleneck on or a blazer, depends on like if I'm doing a yearly review or something like that, or even doing media training, right? Because like you said, I want to show
Yeah.
up as that professional, that person, that expert. It really conveys that based on how, how you're dressed.
Yeah.
Um,
What
and
is that? Oh, sorry. I
so
want to ask for tips is what are the biggest mistakes that you see in the interview?
when I'm in interviews, what are the biggest mistakes that I see? I see that's probably the biggest thing that I see because no matter how prepared I feel sometimes, I always throw an or an there. And it could probably be from the fact that the number one thing that I tell people is take your time. I talk very fast. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like a habit or something or whatever. I want to get my point across. I have something important to say, but that is a tip to take your time to pause, so you can kind of avoid those ums and uhs in the conversation. I do them so many times. I'm just like, this, better, but it's just it's a habit. You want to fill it in. You have something to say. You're getting to that point, but you haven't gotten there just yet. So
Yes.
that's one thing. And then also too, I think it's really important eye contact. So a lot of times, especially when we're doing the virtual, we don't know. I don't know if I should look at you here or if I should look at the camera, like making sure that you're making eye contact in person, if you're doing podcasts or virtual with the interviewer, with the audience, right? That's my thought. Look at the audience because you're technically speaking to them,
Yeah. I totally agree. And it is hard because, right, I put you right below the camera so I can check in on you, like make sure you haven't fallen asleep by what I'm saying. But this is the most important thing. And it's weird. It's a little round hole. It's giving me any feedback whatsoever. However, on camera, that is the most important person to be talking to. So a tip that we give often is picture somebody you like behind it. Picture that you're talking to a friend or somebody that makes you feel comfortable. That can help sometimes. Absolutely. And you're exactly spot on in my opinion about the pause. And that is the fix for the the fillers, as well as even for people who speak at a faster pace, like you and me. That as long as you can talk as fast as you want, as long as you're putting the little pauses in between what you're saying so that your audience has time to digest what's happening. So it's the solve for both of those, which is pretty cool. The biggest mistake I kind of see often is if people are seated when they're being interviewed and they're in a swivel chair and they're constantly like moving. And you know why I did this? Because I have done this myself. I got interviewed years and years ago in Houston, and I was in a conference room with these awesome swivel chairs. And I was like, oh, this feels great. And I wasn't really paying attention to what I do. And I watched the interview later and I felt like an idiot because I looked like a little kid, like, but it just felt good. And I didn't realize how that was coming across. So watch the swivel chair. Big mistake.
Right. And also just again, fidgeting. So if you're one of those people that aren't very comfortable with expressing with your hands, make sure that you're doing this or picking or any of those type of things. I've seen that
Yeah.
as well. Those are all important things to just kind of pay attention to. And if you're
Change the
not
pen. That's a big one. Clicking the pen. It's not a clicker pen, but clicking the pen.
anything, fidgeting with your outfit, any of those type of things, and also just to pay attention. I feel like sometimes I watch interviews and I'm like, are they bored because they're not really paying attention? They're not getting the energy, right, to whoever's interviewing them, or they might be checked out. So I think that's one of the most important things. Make sure that you are paying attention. You might miss something like that. If you're checked out and they're asking you a question and it's an awkward situation to say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat the question? It's just like,
Right.
huh, we are in the middle of an interview. So just being conscious of that, so that you can be sharp, right? And in the time as they're talking, as you're asking questions, you'll be able to, I feel, as the interview goes on, to kind of guess what the next question might be, where the next avenue that they might be. And that'll help you as well to kind of figure out, okay, what am I going to say if they say this? What can I say if they go in this direction? By paying attention. It's very important to do that.
Yes. Yes.
And then um, I think right now we are at my favorite part of this.
Question.
Any questions?
We are open for questions. I just want to say one other key takeaway is that similar to your had the 3 key talking points. It's so funny you said that. So we always say we'll have a pocket story, right? A story or 2 that in your back pocket that you can throw out at any time. So for that could be any sort of filler or mood shifter, right? You want to change the conversation. Whatever we need to do, and having a story in our back pocket can really help, which is essentially the same thing as you said as have the 3 talking points. Because if you think about a story, really good stories have a beginning, middle, and end, and good talking points and sound bites, right? You've got 3, you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So to sort of support you in what you said is absolutely always have a good story as well. And we too have a question. How can you prepare for a phone interview versus a video interview? What if you are on TV?
Phone interviews, I'll start with the phone interviews. I feel like phone interviews are probably the easiest ones, especially because you're not in front of a person and you don't have to necessarily worry so much about your posture. You can really put yourself in a comfortable place. I would say the most important thing when you're in a phone interview is to make sure you have good service. You have your headphones on if they're like sound canceling, just to make sure, your neighbor's dog's not barking, your neighbor's loud car is pulling into their garage and can be heard, because that you don't want that to come across in the interview, because it can definitely distract either you and what you're saying or what the interviewer is saying. So you can be in a nice comfy place answering nice comfy questions, and it's just like having a phone conversation. And I feel like it's one of the most comfortable ways to interview. But also too, you can make sure you have notes in front of you, right? Any kind of questions that you want to avoid, any things that you want to particularly mention, it's so much easier to have them right in front of you versus having to remember them like you would in a TV interview or in a video interview.
Yes. Make sure also if the headphones, that if they're new, you practice with them. I was doing a phone interview. This is years ago, and I had gotten brand new headphones. Yeah, I'm gonna wear these. These are great. And it was kind of like the over the head with the, the mic ear kind of thing. And I get in the live radio interview, and I'm on the call. I'm seated in the corner of my office, my notes, the whole thing, exactly what you were talking about. And I was gesturing as I am wont to do when I'm talking. And I happened to hit like a button on the cord. They were wired headphones of the headphones, and they were brand new. And I didn't realize that it hung up the call, like in the middle of a sentence. And all of a sudden I totally panicked. And it wasn't on Zoom. It wasn't on the internet. I had to call back into the station. I had to get rerouted back to who I was talking to, and then try to say something funny to get back on track when it's been like 10 minutes and they've probably already taken a break. It was very embarrassing. So practice with any equipment.
That you're going to be using for your interview. I agree with that.
Yes.
And then as far as an interview on TV, again, the TV interviews are the ones that you really need to practice. And I would suggest before doing them, practice every day up until the interview. Make sure that if you can have someone record, that's the perfect time to kind of use that technique. So then you can actually, again, sit and rewatch the video, whoever recorded you, and see the things that you're doing. Are you not looking? Are you moving your head too much? Are you waving your hands? Are you using a lot of filler words? Do you just look uncomfortable? And so being able to pre-record those before you get into a TV interview could be the most helpful thing, honestly. And you can use those for trainings too. I've used videos of myself training others to kind of figure out, okay, well, when I'm giving my trainings, what are some things as the trainer that I need to focus on? What am I portraying when I'm, having these conversations and sharing these tips? So again, in all different types of training, not just for, TV interviews, but also presentations, those things are all helpful for that as well.
Oh, that's so true. That's such a good idea. The if you're home, right, or not in studio, if you are creating the environment in which you're getting interviewed yourself, the key is lighting. That is often, I feel, ignored. And it's really important. Now, remember, neurotypical people take in information visually first. So making sure that they can see you really, really well. And that doesn't have to be a lot of expensive equipment. It can simply be light that is behind your camera. So I've got these giant lights right behind the camera, and avoid a lot of light from behind you, because that's where like the shadowy stuff can happen. It's all about just bringing the attention here and doing all the other things you said too.
Exactly. We have one more question too. I could actually, share some insight on this too, but this one might be for you. What are some tips to work on your confidence or your nervousness before media interviews or public speaking?
You have to rehearse. You have to rehearse. And what that means is saying it out loud. So whether that you're working with your PR professional, whether you've you've created some questions you think you might get, or maybe you glean some from listening, doing your research, knowing who your audience is, and knowing who your interviewer is practicing out loud, or even practicing those stories or those 3 sound bites that you're going to have prepared. Say it out loud, record it, observe yourself, make sure you look comfortable. That can help with nerves. Another thing to think about if you are starting to get nervous, and nervousness, like, it's a lot in our head. It can really physically manifest: sweating, heart pounding, all sorts, right? Sick to our stomach, like all of that. It's in our head, in that it is oftentimes, it's kind of that voice in your head, like, I'm going to mess up. I'm going to mess up. I'm not great, or somebody's going to attack me, whatever it is. And that is very real. So if you can get out of your head and think about your audience, or that goal that we talked about before. Okay, what do I want? Why am I being interviewed? Oh, because I want to share this message with the world. I want to share my voice, my mission. And as much as you think about not you, not the interviewer, but the people listening, that can help you sort of get away from, I'm nervous, I'm nervous, I'm nervous.
Exactly. And to piggyback on that, you know what I've started doing? Affirmations. I don't know if everyone believes in this, but honestly, I am confident. I have this. I am a great public speaker. I'm going to knock this interview out the park. I know exactly what I'm saying. Those type of things, those type of affirmations to yourself in the mirror, as well as practicing, your 3 key messages are so helpful, because really, it's like you said, the nervousness is a mind thing, and you have to get out of your mind and kind of train your mind to know that you've got this, right? You don't need to be worrying about messing up, because with the goal's not, again, right, to be perfect. It's to get that message across. You have to think about the best way to do that. And, telling yourself, I'm confident. I'm gonna tell everyone, I'm gonna tell the world, everybody's gonna, they're gonna understand, they're gonna believe, I'm gonna come across as credible. Those are all helpful things when interviewing before you get on your interview, just to have those conversations. And they're really powerful, not just, again, when you're doing interviews, but just in life in general. You have a big presentation. I'm going to knock this presentation out the park. I know exactly what I want to say, what my goal is, to your point, and I got this. A simple "I got this" is so helpful.
I got this. I think I said that to you right before we started. I was like, you got this.
Yeah, and then I felt that. I really felt, I do have this. I got this.
You do. Absolutely.
So if we don't have any more questions, we will go ahead and say thank you to everyone for tuning in. Kerri, was there anything else that you wanted to add before we hop off?
I think we nailed it. And the reminders of that we're not going for perfection. We're going for influence, engaging messaging, that the goal is to get your voice out. It's not to be perfect. And you got this. You and everybody else, you've got this. You're being asked to be interviewed for a reason, because of your expertise or whatever you've got going on. And they want to hear from you.
Agreed. Yeah. And so everyone, thank you for joining us. We have a few more great sessions coming up for our PR Essential Summit right after this. If you guys have any questions or you want information, you can check out our website. Also check out Kerri's website if you guys want some more tips on public speaking and media interviews.